It's interesting to go back and play that video, and then knowing that Skin Trade has come out. And I mean, Duran, you've always been very aware of the power that sex has in selling any kind of thing.
Any element of the entertainment business. Yeah.
Do you think that because you're very blatant and you're very aware that that is being used all the time, does that make it any better than a band who just makes sure they got a couple cool-looking babes in their videos?
I don't think we think about using sex to sell us any more records anymore. I think the only time that would have ever happened was that video, and you know, I guess we've kind of had that glamour tag that's stuck with us, and it's certainly something that you don't want to try and fight off. There doesn't seem any point in you know, disengaging from it, but I mean, Skin Trade was actually a commentary on it, and I think it was really, you know, a lot of people misconstrued it, you know, and they just completely missed the point. I mean, it was saying that really, whatever you're doing, if you're in this kind of game, and anybody knows what you look like, you know, whether it's you or me, then we're kind of all playing the same game in a way. And you know, it's just a lot of people can develop quite an attitude, and you're damned for doing a certain, you know, for selling yourself in a certain way. But really, you know, I mean, how many people are doing exactly what they want to do, you know, and they're not compromising themselves at any point, you know. And if you're going to compromise your own sexuality, I mean, that's not a great thing. It's much worse to compromise your intellectualism, really. I mean, it's worse to make music that you don't want to make. Really,
so you're picking the lesser of two evils? Do you think that most people do?
Well, at least I do. At least I do what I want to do, which is more than you can say for a lot of journalists who write about, you know, who will review our record, but really they don't want to be reviewing records. They'd rather be writing a book or something. That, to me, is compromising your art more than we ever do.
Or they'd rather be a guitar player.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole story.
There is something interesting that I read that Simon had said very recently, and the fact that the last two singles haven't done as well as Notorious. In some perverse way, that has given Duran Duran credibility again with the press.
Yeah, El Presidente was a mistake. That was definitely a mistake to release that. It was one of the only. It was the second time we'd ever followed our record company's idea, and Careless Memories was the first time. And that was the second, and we were kind of at a loss. We really didn't know which way to go after Skin Trade, because it was such a slap in the face, you know. Because we've had much greater success with records that, you know, we know haven't been anywhere near as good. So we kind of lost our way a little bit after that, and left it down to them, and we really did become victims of the game ourselves. I'm not really worried about it. I think in some ways you have to suffer defeat to become really free. You know, now I know what it's like to have a record that has missed, and it doesn't really hurt. You know, I always wondered, I wonder what it'd be like when our records don't sell as well. But you know, when it happens, I think we've got a lot of confidence in, you know, in what goes on up here. I think you've just got to follow your instincts, and El Presidente was definitely a typical example of following somebody else's instincts and falling flat on your face.
It never pays off, does it?
No, you've got to follow your own instincts. Each and every one of us has, you know.
When the album came out, Notorious, I wondered why you called it that. I thought, well, they're calling that kind of hopefully Notorious.
No, it was, I mean, the title, we had it as a working title to the project, you know, when me and Nick first got into it, and it just seemed to be a more kind of like it was scandalous, slightly naughty, and the idea that a lot of people really didn't think we'd get back together, you know, and there'd been Power Station Arcade and all these individual things, and Nick said this, and Simon said this, and John said this, and all this, and so I think there was an element of notoriety in what we were doing, and would we come back together. But once again, you know, people take the whole thing too seriously and say, you know, looking anything but Notorious on the cover. So, you know, you can't do the right thing in some people's eyes.
We wanted to play The Reflex next, because that was shot in Toronto.
Right, that's right, yeah.
So a little bit, so you have more of a connection with Toronto than simply whizzing through with the CNE.
Appears on our video discography.
All right, here's a piece of Toronto and a piece of Duran Duran with a reflex on MuchMusic.